All right, guys. We got about 2 weeks until free agency opens up. 2 weeks until we start to see teams really make major moves, franchise altering moves. And we're starting to hear some rumors. And the rumors that we hear right now might end up meaning very little. They might end up meaning nothing. But for the moment, for the most part, that's all we have to go on. There are a few teams that are starting to restructure contracts. There are a few teams that are starting to cut people, like the Falcons already cut Dante Fowler, which actually apparently puts him on the market a few days before everyone else, which is kind of an interesting wrinkle, I guess. But for the most part, you're not seeing a lot of actual action. So the rumors are all we have to go on, and a lot of the time, the rumors have a solid basis in reality. A lot of the times they don't, but I think it's important to understand what is going to generate clicks and what isn't. So when I see a story like this coming from Bob Condotta, I'm inclined to believe that there's probably at least some truth behind it. So this is a couple days old now, but rumors like this have been getting passed around for a while. The Seahawks are likely to prioritize keeping Duane Brown in free agency. Michael David Smith has this story on PFT, and Bob Condotta has the actual report of the Seattle Times. Writes that after Brown played in all 17 games in 2021 and particularly impressed the team with his play late in the season, Seattle now appears more likely to run it back with Brown and other key players and try to improve in 2022 on their disappointing 7-10 record in 2021. So it seems like after all is said and done, Duane Brown will probably be coming back. And the two concrete things that we have heard about this team's plans this offseason are bringing back Duane Brown and bringing back Quandre Diggs. Maybe, other than DJ Reed, I guess, they're two highest profile free agents. So, a couple different ways for me to think about this. I'm not going to call it a terrible idea. I'm not going to say it's completely without merit. I'll even go so far as to say that you could easily argue that it's one of the better things this team could do, but I'm still not happy about the way this is playing out for a couple different reasons. So let's try to get into this. If we do bring back Duane Brown on the kind of deal that I assume he would get, what does that mean? What does it imply? And what does it say about 2022? So, Duane Brown had a good 2021, right? He did. About half the sacks he gave up were because Russell Wilson wasn't getting the ball out fast enough, wasn't moving in the pocket the way he needed to. Duane Brown gave up like 8 sacks in 2021. I would say 4 of those were on Wilson, not on Duane Brown. So I'm not that worried about that number. He also did get better as the season went on, I believe, in terms of his general overall play. And if you think back to training camp, he sat out a lot of training camp. It's possible that part of the reason why he got off to a slow start was because he sat out a lot of the OTA stuff because he wanted a new contract. So I understand that. I'm not one of these people. After stepping back and looking at it objectively, I don't think it's fair to say that Duane Brown was a bad player or even an average player. He was good. The problem I have with that is he was good after being elite in 2020. In 2020, he was one of the best left tackles in the game, borderline all pro level. Had a great PFF grade, only allowed 2 sacks, over 1,000 snaps, had 2 penalties. In 2021, the year he turned 36, he had 5 penalties, 8 sacks. Even if half of those were Wilson's fault, there's still the other half. That's still a big increase from 2020. And his PFF grade dove like 16 points. And you can say some of that is on Wilson, some of that is on maybe the players playing next to him. Maybe some of that is on other factors like having a new offensive coordinator. having to protect the blind side of a backup quarterback for 3.5 games. I understand that. But you can't tell me that he didn't take a big step back in 2021 compared to 2020. This is a guy who played at an all-pro level in 2018 as well. He played well in 2019, and then he got back to all-pro in 2020. Now, it is possible that's just year-to-year variance, and it is conceivable that Duane Brown takes a step up in 2022 compared to where he was last year, and he's back in that top 7 range for a left tackle. But given the fact that he's about to turn 37, does that sound like a good bet for a football team to make that is trying to win a Super Bowl this year? We're going to just cross our fingers that our 37-year-old left tackle is going to bounce back and be better at 37 than he was at 36? Now, I'll say this. The free agency market for left tackle is not very good. And I'm not really into the idea of drafting somebody because, I mean, I went over this in previous videos, but to me, having a rookie left tackle is a recipe for getting your quarterback killed. So, other than Teron Armstead, you could argue that Duane Brown is the best we can do. You could. You've got Teron Armstead, who, by the way, has missed a lot of time due to injury lately. You've got Eric Fisher, who he's kind of in a similar position to Duane Brown, but he's a lot younger. But there's no guarantee that he's going to be better than what Duane Brown will be. And then there isn't a whole lot else you can really talk about. Tyron Smith, who's played in 10 games the last 2 years. There a couple of other guys you could maybe mention, but honestly, after Teron Armstead, you could make an argument that Duane Brown is the best left tackle available even at his age. But it can't help but not sit well with me that this team is unwilling to even try. If they're already deciding that they're going to bring back Duane Brown, then on some level they must mentally be going, we're not even going to go for Teron Armstead. Now, maybe it's because his injury history has them staying away. That would be at least somewhat understandable. But knowing this team, it's probably more because they can't imagine paying an offensive lineman that kind of money. They can't imagine making that kind of investment into the offensive line. So we're all going to have to come to our own conclusions there, but I can't shake the feeling that the fact that we are already supposedly working on a re-up with Duane Brown tells you that this team has already decided they're not going to try to do anything better. And overall, when you take a look at the fact that the Seahawks supposedly are prioritizing bringing back Quandre, bringing back Duane, and are rumored to be also prioritizing bringing back Reed and Sidney Jones, it seems like the interest of the team this offseason is to keep things as similar as possible to how they were in 2021. Bring back as many pieces as they can. We were not good in 2021. We were a bad team. Maybe we were average, but we were certainly not good. So why would you want to keep as much as possible from a team that underachieved and disappointed more than just about any other team in the league? We were one of the most disappointing teams in the league. Why are you trying to run stuff back from that team? So the other issue that I have here, and this isn't a big issue, is the money. I projected a couple of months ago that Duane Brown would be looking at about a 1-year, $7 million contract. So let's say you give him the 1-year, $7 million contract. You can't backload that, right? Because there's nowhere to backload it. You might see us throw a couple million into a void year. Maybe you could get that down to like 1 year, $5 million with $2 million dead next year, or maybe a 1-and-1. Maybe you even go a little further than that. You could go 1 year, $4 million, 2 dead, 1 dead, something like that. Okay, but there's no backloading it. You can't bring him back on like a 2-year, $15 million deal, and then he's only got like a $2 million cap hit this year, and then you have a bunch of it in a non-guaranteed season or something like that. Duane Brown already said he's probably only going to get a 1-year deal, and he's prepared to accept that. I don't think we're going to be giving him a multi-year contract. That should be okay. But I'm just looking at the way things are coming together this offseason. If we're going to give, let's say, Duane Brown $5 million cap hit in 2022, and then Quandre, the first-year cap hit, I don't know, let's say it's $7 million. DJ Reed, $5 million. Sidney Jones, probably like $3 million. And then on the other end, you know that it's very unlikely this team has the testicular fortitude to release Bobby Wagner and save 16.6, release Chris Carson and save 3.5. And honestly, it can be argued that we also lack the testicular fortitude to restructure Russell Wilson, $9 million. The money's disappearing fast. And it's disappearing without us doing anything different, doing anything out of the ordinary, doing anything that would separate this team from the subpar product of 2021. And by the way, I want to point out here, you can argue the team was terrible last year. We were 3-8, and then we got hot at the end when it didn't matter. So why are you trying to run back so much stuff from a team that was arguably terrible? We were the second worst team in the NFC after 11 games last year, and then we won like 4 games, mostly against terrible teams, to make it look slightly more respectable. But what is the fascination with running these guys back when they didn't produce a good product last year? And there are going to be a lot of theories about that. It just feels like they're comfortable with something familiar. That's how it feels. But let's talk about just the offensive line part of this, because the real thing that kind of gets me down about this, the concept of bringing back Duane Brown. Duane Brown was good in 2021. If you bring him back in 2022, the best case scenario is that he's good again. And when I say good, I don't mean very good. I don't mean great. I certainly don't mean elite. I mean good. He's turning 37. We know he has that knee issue that I don't think is ever going to go away. It already keeps him from practicing very much during the week. And I know he doesn't really need to practice. But the point is, I don't think it's realistic to expect him to be one of these guys who plays at an elite level until he's 40, like Andrew Whitworth or maybe Jason Peters even. And you also got to remember his job is harder than those guys because Wilson's not an easy guy to block for. And he might not be a great fit for this offense. He doesn't have a lot of mobility at this point. I don't know. It depends on how you interpret this offense. So realistically, to me, the best case scenario is that you bring back Duane Brown for 2022 and he's good. Now, there's plenty of room for him to slip even further from where he slipped last year and become average, below average, even bad. It's totally possible. Walter Jones fell off a cliff like that. I think he made the Pro Bowl in 2007, was still a really good player. The next year he was terrible. It happened real quick. It can happen to anybody. But, okay, Duane Brown, realistic best case scenario is that he's good. Somewhere in between the 9th and 13th best left tackle in the league. Okay, right tackle, Jake Curhan. We know there's a possibility that Jake Curhan either goes into 2022 as the starter or competing for the starting job with somebody who isn't a super accomplished and super high-profile player. Maybe like a Brandon Shell or a Dennis Kelly. If you start Jake Curhan next year and he's good, by which I mean anywhere from 9th best to 13th best right tackle, I'm jumping through the roof. I think that's a great result. So that's the best case scenario. He's a second-year player, UDFA, physically limited. If Jake Curhan goes out there in 2022 and plays at a level that's even above average for a right tackle, like 15th or better among starting right tackles in the NFL, I'm jumping for joy. So you've got 2 tackle spots where your best case scenario is that the results are good. Guard. Are you blowing up the guard room? I doubt it. So you've got Gabe Jackson, who I think in 2021 was good. He was flawed. He wasn't a stellar pass blocker sometimes, but he was good. But he's a year older, and I don't think he's a great fit for what we're trying to do on offense either. He's a little slower. He's a little lumbering. I'm not into that. I don't think that's what Waldron's looking for. So you bring back Gabe Jackson, wherever you put him, left side or right side, best case scenario is that he's good again. I don't think he's suddenly going to get better, especially if the offense changes. And with him being a year older and already starting to show signs of decline, I think your best case scenario is that Gabe Jackson is good. And again, when I say good, I mean somewhere between the 9th best and 13th best player at his position. Damian Lewis. If you put him at right guard, I think he has a little more upside. I think maybe his best case scenario at right guard would be really good to great. But if you keep him at left guard like you did in 2021, then I don't even think good is the best case scenario. I think average is the best case scenario. And he's not a good fit for this offense at all, I don't think. He's a very slow and lumbering offensive lineman. Cannot move, which is a good reason to put him at right guard. But even at right guard, the Waldron offense might be asking him to do things that he's not very good at. Playing in space, moving to the second level. So you've got 4 positions on the offensive line where potentially the best case scenario is that things are good. And you know that if this team doesn't have the courage to aggressively clear cap space, and they're going to prioritize bringing players back from the 2021 team like Brown, like Diggs, like Reed, like Jones, whatever money they have left is going to go towards the new 3-4 defense, because they need a nose tackle, they need outside linebackers, they probably need defensive ends, at least one of them. There's not going to be any money left to really improve the team very much anywhere else. So I can't help but get hung up on that. There's just such a low ceiling on this offensive line if you bring back Duane Brown, unless your plan is to go get like Ryan Ramczyk from the Saints at right tackle, I guess. But I don't know. It's not unheard of for a left tackle to play great into their old age. But my thing is, Duane Brown has that chronic knee issue, and we saw the signs of slippage last year. Why not get out now? Okay, this video is way too long for a video about Duane Brown, but I had to say what I said. Let me know what you guys think, but that's my main hang-up here. It's not that he's a bad player. It's not that he's not going to be good in 2022, but you're putting a low ceiling on this offensive line when upgrading the offensive line needs to be the first, second, and third priority. See you guys later. Go Hawks.